According to data from the Postsecondary Policy Institute, it revealed that 19% of undergraduate students and 12% of graduate students are enrolled in college and universities across America with a disability. Meanwhile, data from the federal government and NBC News reports that only a third of students with a disability who enroll in a 4-year college or university program graduate within 8 years. Brice Yates is the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for the University of Houston Clear Lake, and it's his responsibility to implement the university's overall strategic plan when it comes to diversity and inclusion. Additionally, it's Yates' job to work across departments to ensure that the university is implementing diverse and inclusive hiring practices to attract and retain the most diverse and qualified workforce it can. And he joined me this week to have a conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion in higher education and what needs to be done to ensure that all students, staff, and university community members alike feel included in all aspects of higher education. It was an interesting conversation of great impact. So, without further delay, I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, my friend, and I'm super excited to learn about your role as Chief Diversity Officer for the University of Houston Clear Lake, my friend. Great to see you this morning, and thank you for a few minutes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. Now, Brice, I know that as a part of your role as the Chief Diversity Officer, you work to implement the university's overall strategy for diversity, equity, and inclusion as it relates to the entire university and their hiring practices, just to name a few of your responsibilities there. So I'm wondering if you can start our conversation by telling me exactly what your role entails and why it's so vitally important to the university.
Yeah, thank you. So for me, the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion is really making sure that we provide a welcoming and inclusive campus for all of our diverse constituents. So making sure the campus is welcoming for faculty, staff, and students. And so through some of those initiatives, it's developing workshops, trainings, educational opportunities that seek to enhance the DEI content and knowledge of our campus community. Also utilizing our assessment pieces such as surveys, focus groups to see where we're currently at within the university, to see where our strengths are, but also to gather some information of where our areas of weaknesses are, or maybe some of our deficiencies, in order to develop strategies to address those and to make those needed changes for the university. Also looking at the retention and recruitment numbers of our faculty, staff, and students, making sure that we have a truly diverse campus. So here in the States, our university is classified as a multicultural serving institution, meaning that we have 25.1% greater students who identify as multicultural, so racial or ethnic minorities. And then we're also classified as a Hispanic serving institution, meaning that we have 25.1% greater students who identify as Hispanic, Latino, or Latinx. So we are a diverse campus by numbers, but we want to make sure that we have programming and resources available for our students to be successful. So that's where this role comes in. It's looking at what programs are in place, also what programs need to be in place, what resources are there, and providing that support for our students on campus. Also partnering with our faculty affairs to make sure that we're providing some training resources support for our academic units, partnering with HR for our staff support as well as student affairs. So utilizing our climate surveys, utilizing our program initiatives, and really just striving to make sure that we are this institution where all of our constituents feel welcomed and included here on campus.
And Brice, I come from a background of promoting inclusive employment for folks with disabilities, and I know that that is a major part of what you do as well to make sure that students with disabilities are fully included in your campus culture. So when we look at students with disabilities, how do you think we can continue to fully include them in all of the college lifestyle and making sure that they're placed on a pathway towards success?
Yeah. Yeah. So definitely understand the importance of ensuring individuals with disabilities or accessibility needs are considered and valued. So when we see that there may be a lack of awareness and the lack of inappropriate infrastructure, such as office setup or staffing structures for some of our staff, we can see that that causes exclusion of people with disabilities or accessibility needs. So making sure that we make the adjustments to the needs, the spaces that help to accommodate any sensory needs that should be provided upon request. And then also understanding the needs of the students in the classroom setting and making sure that we work to improve a more inclusivity environment for all of our individuals who may have disabilities or accessibility needs. So it's important that we foster this environment that is conducive to all needs around disabilities or accessibility needs, and working to recognize and emphasize each person's individual strength and talents, which also provides support for the differences in needs. So within my roles, I partnered with human resources in ensuring the university remains compliant under the American Disabilities Act, so our ADA policy, and also the Rehabilitation Act. And then also have ensured that we provide appropriate accommodations, whether to employees or our students here who have disabilities or accessibility needs. I've worked with our university officials to conduct audits of physical spaces in support of creating visually welcoming and inclusive environments for individuals with disabilities and accessibility needs. And then I've also worked to ensure our facilities are accessible and safe by participating in tour of campus facilities to review accessibility needs. And so through our review of buildings and spaces, we work to review building actuaries, accessibility ramps, digital signage, classroom setups. And the review of these buildings and spaces is a part of what we call our annual diversity report, ensuring that we're providing updates and strategies to address the findings. And then I've also partnered with our student disabilities offices to discuss and develop plans to address the gaps and opportunities of improvement on campus to better serve our students with disabilities and accessibility needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brice, within your role, I'm curious to ask you, how do you define the word inclusion? What do you think that means in your role on a more broader sense?
Yeah, and inclusion is really highlighting and bringing together the various diverse backgrounds that we have on campus. So we have to move beyond just a recognition of diversity, but really striving to bring those individuals and mindsets together. So making sure that we're providing equal access for all individuals to be successful within the university setting. That is a true definition of inclusion, making sure that all individuals have equal access, are being heard and being respected and valued on campus through our intentional work around diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that's how I define inclusion, is that intentional effort to make sure that all individuals' voices are heard and respected and seen on campus. So we have to make sure that we're creating programming and events that are truly inclusive, that invite all individuals around the institution to come and participate and to learn about the um, various diverse groups that we have on campus. That's how we strive to create inclusion on campus.
Yeah, just building on that last point, I'm also curious to ask you, how do you think we continue to eliminate barriers to access to opportunities for all students?
Yeah, eliminating those barriers, we have to have the first step is having those conversations. We have to realize that barriers exist. We have to realize inequities exist as well too. And once we realize that those exist and we start having the conversations, we're taking the action steps to really break down those barriers. But also understanding it takes the work of all individuals on campus. It can't just be one group or this one individual. It's the collective work around all individuals on campus to break down these barriers. So if we see that one group may be struggling or weak in this area, we need to bring our other groups together to the table to have these conversations and working to break down some of these barriers that exist on campus. But we can no longer ignore inequities or barriers. We have to address them head on. And that's how we work to create this more inclusive environment. That's how we work to eliminate and remove the barriers that may be existent.
And I know that a large part of your role is also motivating staff, students, and other university personnel to really be motivated towards a common goal of retention and sort of the inclusion of everyone on campus. So, talk to me about creating an inclusive culture and uh,
Yeah.
what that entails in your view.
Yeah, creating an inclusive culture. So you one have to define what inclusion is. So it's important to define that, and that's what we talked about in the previous question, defining what inclusion is. But in creating this inclusive culture, we have to talk about bringing together the diverse perspectives, the diverse mindset, the diverse individuals. And for people, it's important for people to understand that when we talk about diversity, when we talk about inclusion, it isn't just individuals of color or racial or ethnic backgrounds or individuals who may have disabilities or accessibility needs or LGBTQ plus individuals. It is all individuals. So when we talk about racial minorities, we're also talking about the majority are white individuals as well too. So we have to get everybody on the similar mindset around what inclusion truly is and having those conversations. So when we talk about this inclusive culture, it's actually a beginning shift of where we are. So making sure that individuals see themselves represented on campus, making sure that conversations are being had, programming initiatives are being had, support is being had for all of our diverse backgrounds, making sure that those perspectives are being heard on campus and being reflected. So that's how we start to create this inclusive culture on campus. And it takes time, but it has to be the buy-in of individuals as well. So people have to see themselves within the institution. And so within this role, it's my job to make sure that the individuals do see themselves, that they do feel included, that they feel welcomed here on campus. So by the programming, That's one of the parts, but also by the conversations and engagement. That's another piece that help people feel included. So that's how we start creating this inclusive culture on campus.
And I imagine a large part of your job has to do with listening and having those authentic conversations. So tell me, what have you learned most in your capacity by listening to the students and staff on campus, and how do you think they define academic success, and how much does that really inform the work that you do as well?
Yeah, yeah. So within this role, as you mentioned, one of the biggest pieces it is listening. Um, so I cannot be effective in this role if I do not listen and understand what are the needs and the concerns of faculty, staff, and students. So that's what leads the work that I do. Are the voices, are the perspectives of our faculty, staff, and students. So I have to listen. So listening is really important within this role. One, also, you want people to get to know you and you want to build trust amongst individuals. And that trust is built through professional work, courtesy, and open communication. So I always tell people, I try to have an open door policy. I try to engage and talk with people as much as possible, listen, serve as that advocate for individuals as well on campus. So that listening ear is truly important within this role. Also within this role, you can't judge people, and you can't get offended by things either. I tell people, I said, if I was to be offended by what I hear, what I see, I could not then educate folks around DE&I. So for me, having done this work for quite a while, you see a lot, you hear a lot, and so for me, I don't get offended. So I always tell people, I said, let's have a real conversation. Let's find out what's going on. Let's get to the root cause. So that listening aspect is important. Being transparent is important as well too, but also being authentic and confidential. So when people share things with you, it's important that you don't necessarily share things out with other individuals. They're coming to you in a sense of confidentiality. They're coming to you as someone who is that they can trust. So that's what I really value about this role, being able to build that authentic and trustful relationship with individuals where they can come and we can have those conversations. Now, and saying that there may be some things that are discussed that we need to address from a university standpoint or from a departmental standpoint. So then I need to go and have some follow-up conversations. But I want this to be a role where I can serve as an advocate and where people feel confident in coming and having those conversations, but also knowing that I'm going to work on those action steps moving forward from what we discussed.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brice, from both personal and professional experience, I know the value of making sure that students with disabilities also have access to opportunities to work while they're still in college. So talk to me about fostering an inclusive workforce for folks with or students with disabilities, why they're still in college, and why that's so vitally important for the rest of their professional career, in your opinion.
Yeah, yeah, it's important that I look at our college and university settings is the time where we are educating students, not just inside the classroom, but also outside the classroom. So giving them that great educational education in the classroom, but then also preparing them for the workforce, preparing students to be global change agents. So as we have various work study opportunities available within the university setting, it's important that we are providing those opportunities for our students to grow in that paraprofessional opportunity. So our students who have disabilities or accessibility needs, again, we need to make sure that we are providing them the opportunity for work employment if they so seek that during their educational tenure within the university. Again, because those students will be going out into the workforce after they complete their degrees as well too. So it's important that we provide that sense of development and growth for those students in the university setting. But it also gives us an opportunity to maybe be a little bit more hands-on, provide a little bit more support for the students, but also helping them develop their level of confidence, their professionalism, their skill set. Again, so when they go out into the professional workforce, they can say, hey, I got this great education. I got this great training around my paraprofessional professional opportunities. I'm confident when I go out into the workforce, the skill sets, the resources, the tools that I gathered while I was at the university, it's going to make me successful once I complete my degree in the workforce.
Yeah, and I know you spend a lot of time interpreting data and adapting as well in terms of the changing needs of accessibility. So I'm curious to ask you about what do you think in terms of trends has really evolved and gotten better, and where do you think more work still needs to be done in terms of assessing the college environment for universal success for all students?
Yeah, I think where we have progressed, and I think this may be due a little bit to the pandemic, is that we're providing multiple levels of modality for students to learn. So typically, with a lot of institutions, you'll see those traditional students on campus learning in the classroom. You may have some recorded sessions, but largely you would see students on campus in the classrooms learning. I think now with the pandemic, we've become a little bit more flexible and providing some options for students to learn. So again, yes, having students on campus, but doing lecture capture, doing some recordings, giving students the opportunity to say, hey, if I can't make it to campus today because I have a sick child or I have a sick family member or an emergency has come up. Now there's this option to still watch the same lecture that students in the classroom were watching and not be behind. So I think we've evolved a little bit more on our technology when it comes to teaching and educating our students. I think one of the things that is still lacking is our, I would say kind of our ADA compliance when it comes to more so events or even some classroom meetings when it comes to having interpreters for our students or individuals who may be hearing impaired. I think that's one of the things that's still lacking from what I've seen in a lot of our education spaces. We may not necessarily have those interpreters at the ready, but I think also that's some of the areas from a university standpoint that we need to be more cognizant about. How are we making sure that we remain ADA compliant in that regard?
And Brice, one of the things I also wanted to ask you was about building a social capital for students with disabilities and making sure that they're not isolated and really encouraging both recreation and social opportunities for students with disabilities while they're in college, because that's a major part of their overall success if they're mentally uh, involved in all aspects of life on campus, inside and outside of the classroom. I'm sure you would agree with that. So tell me about the importance of sort of building social capital as well for all students.
Yeah, it's important. Again, as we talk about, the success of our student body population, we're looking at students from various categories. Again, whether it's racial, ethnic categories, social, economic, students with disabilities or accessibility needs, LGBTQ plus, religious minorities. We need to make sure that, again, when we talk about providing the resources, when we talk about the education, when we talk about the support, that we are actually providing those arenas that capture the needs of all of our students on campus. So we see that we have our students with disability and accessibility needs on campus. How are we making sure that they're that they're getting this, not just this educational opportunity in the classroom, but also the co-curricular activities on campus. How are we making sure that they feel included? So again, whether it's intramural sports, whether it's social clubs, making sure that the students are having those same opportunities to engage within the campus community and getting that holistic university experience while they're here.
Yeah, and you're also in a unique perspective in Houston and in Texas because, as you mentioned, you have a large Latino population as well. So, how much of a competitive advantage is it, I guess, when you go to recruit students to come to the university that you have a large Latino population and a diverse population overall as a university? How much of a competitive advantage is that for you?
I think it's a competitive advantage, but I also think we have to look at our market. So being in Houston, there are numerous higher education institutions around here. So I think we have to realize who we are and embrace who we are as an institution. So what is our identity? Our identity is we are an HSI, Hispanic Serving Institution. We're a multicultural serving institution. We have one of the most affordable four-year educations opportunities for students in the Houston area. So we have to leverage that. We have classroom sizes where the faculty ratio is much smaller than what you would see at some other institutions. So when we realize who we are and we utilize those selling points to students, I think that's how we can recruit students to come here to the University of Houston Clear Lake. So we are a more intimate setting campus. We're a smaller classroom setting. We are a very diverse institution by our student body population. So I think those pieces are very attractive for students to come and say, hey, I want to be a part of, this great institution that is very diverse, that the classroom setting, I can get this one-on-one attention from my faculty. I can also get a great education that's very affordable as well, too. So those are some of the pieces that we utilize for our recruiting and getting our students here on campus. But it's not just about the recruiting. We also need to make sure that we're retaining our students and graduating them as well, too. So those are the other two important pieces.
Yeah, and Brice, with the few minutes I have left with you, I'm curious to ask you your opinion on your greatest hope for the future when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion in higher education. And then just lastly, when you look at your own personal and professional legacy, how do you want that to be defined?
So for me, it's my work is done for others. So if I can make an impact that assist other people to be successful and feeling included in who they are and where they are, to me, that's success. I look at, my work is to help others. I don't do this for myself. I do it for others. I just really, for me, my passion is creating this welcoming and inclusive environment where all individuals feel included and seen on campus. That's why I do this work. My passion is to help and support and provide access and resources for others. So that's what I want my legacy to be. Somebody who was a servant leader and is somebody who led the charge also for diversity, equity, and inclusion within a university setting.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brice, finally tell me if people want to get connected with you personally or the University of Houston Clear Lake, what's the best way they can do that, buddy?
Yeah, the best way to contact me would be via email. My email is Yates, Yates, the letter B, at uhcl.edu. So Yates, Yates, B, at uhcl.edu. Or individuals can also find me via LinkedIn, first name Brice, last name Yates. So always willing to connect and engage with individuals.
Well, Brice, I really appreciate the work that you do in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and for engaging students with disabilities and other diverse backgrounds to make sure that they have an inclusive future. My friend, your work in the space and time on my behalf this morning is most appreciated, and I want to thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Kevin. I appreciate the invitation and enjoyed the conversation.